Hi everyone, it's Candace from Beacon Hill Books. I'm here today. The first book I read was The Buddha in the Attic by Julie Otsuka. I happened to see Little Spider 9 do a review on it and I was instantly intrigued. This book is really unlike anything I've ever read before. It is only 146 pages, but the story is told through first person plural. For instance, someone on Goodreads wrote an example of what that would be like, and this person particularly didn't like that style. It's like, some of us will like this book, some of us won't. Some of us will find the constant plural first person narrative terribly annoying, wondering if any group of people can be so cohesive as one. I think it works, and it's awesome, and it's different, and it follows a bunch of Japanese picture brides leaving Japan and coming to San Francisco, and their trials, like there's chapters, and each chapter is a part of their adventure. So the first chapter is the boat ride over, and all of the Japanese women have pictures of their husband, as well as they had pictures sent to their husbands of them. So it's interesting because most of those pictures, come to find out, weren't true. And maybe on both accounts a little bit, but it's really a difficult and harrowing journey for these women. We go from the boat to meeting their husband, to having their first night with their husband, to working in the fields, like, immediately. And in most cases, actually, a lot of these women had a worse life in America than they did in Japan. They were doing back-breaking labor work. The story also touches on women that, a little bit further in the book, have different jobs, like a maid or working at a laundromat or something, but the working in the fields chapter I thought was that first initiation into U.S. soil where they meet their husbands and then they wake up and go to work for the first time, and how eye-opening and how wrong this picture was that they had in their head of what their life was going to be like in America. It talks about assimilation, and then when they start to have their children and what their children go through, and how they're kind of still, a lot of times, considered different because of their heritage. And then there's some that were thriving and some that do find true love. You know, there are those stories as well, but as a majority, it's not that way. And then the end part, sorry for the late, the end part is spectacular. By the end, I was getting like, okay, you know, I want to move forward. I love all of the stories and the historical accuracy. She found most of these tidbits and things, snippets of people's lives from actual accounts. Like, these things really happen. What happens to the Japanese a little after in the early 1900s. And it was, for 146 pages, I just feel like it's worth the dive in and the different perspective. So I rated this 3 stars because after the first couple chapters, I was, not as drawn to pick it up, but it's still a good book to read. I have a few quotes. We forgot about Buddha, we forgot about God. We developed a coldness inside us that still has not thawed. I fear my soul has died. We stopped writing home to our mothers. We lost weight and grew thin. We stopped bleeding. We stopped dreaming. We stopped wanting. This is America, we would say to ourselves. There is no need to worry, and we would be wrong. I read 3 Souls by Chang. I really loved this book. Of the 4 books I'm going to talk about, I think this was my personal favorite, and I'm definitely going to read more Janie Chang as soon as I can. This book was published in 2014-ish. At least my version was. It looks like it was 2013. And it's about 500 pages. And this is a historical fiction and really a sort of historical personal memoir. Chang was inspired to write this book based on what happened in her life, and her characters are actually centered around her particular family, which is so cool. We follow a young girl named Lei Song, and we're at 1935, and right away, the first chapter, we begin the book with her death. And, you know, that's quite the different introduction. She's looking kind of down on her family, going through grieving her loss, and she's with her three souls, hence the title of the book. There's the Yang, Yin, and Hun. Lei Yin is kind of stuck in this in-between world. Her souls tell her she can't proceed on until she rights some of the wrongs that she did in her life. And she says, oh my gosh, there's so many wrongs I have in my life. So we start going back in time and think about her life and, very meaningful moments. And the three souls each have like a different perspective and try and guide her to getting her soul freed. It intertwines the family story and Lei Yin's story with the politics of the time. I really liked that part of the book. And there's sort of a movement going on for New China, and she is sort of going through her coming of age at the same time, where a woman has no say in her future, does not typically get educated, and has all of her decisions made for her by either her father or her husband. And so Lei Yin meets someone that changes her life. He's politically left-leaning, and she makes some very rash decisions after meeting him. She was a young girl, so it's frustrating sometimes following her decision-making when you know it's not the right decision to make. Her priority is education. It was a really enjoyable book. The next book I read was Deliveries by Lisa Ko. This came out this year. This has to do with Chinese immigrants coming to the United States. It follows two storylines. One, a mother named Polly, and she is an undocumented immigrant. And she comes to the U.S. because she has gotten pregnant. And the other storyline is her son, Deming. Deming and her live in New York City, and Polly works in this nail salon, and one day she goes to work and she never comes back. Then the story sort of follows Daniel most primarily, what he has to do because he was living with Polly's boyfriend and his family, but they don't have the money to take care of him, so he gets adopted by two white professors in upstate New York. And how Daniel Deming struggles with being left by his mother, being Chinese in a place where he is, and really his identity, because his new parents, which he has, a hard time even coming to that term because he thinks he already has a mother, rename him as Daniel. So he went from Deming Gao to Daniel Wilkinson, I believe. Then we join back in with Polly again and find out what happened with her. And I have to say, I felt like both of the characters were unreliable narrators. Both of them frustrated me with their choices. It was also very inspiring to see Polly growing up in China as a female and being an independent and hardworking female to try and make a better life for herself and her son. And I really enjoyed that aspect. I really wanted to finish this book and see what happened. The last book, The Moon in the Palace, which is part of a duology of The Empress of Bright Moon. This is by Weina de Randel, and it was last year. It's about 400 pages as well. And the reason I picked this book up was I was looking through past candidates for Goodreads historical fiction, and this was one of them. It seems pretty much up my alley. And this one I didn't want to put down either, so I really enjoyed it. This story follows, again, a younger girl named May. She came from a royal family, and we begin the book with her father getting killed, and so that changes everything. It takes place during the Tang Dynasty, and so as a young girl, if her father had still been alive, she would have been a candidate to go to be really a concubine for the emperor. And she's very concerned that now that her family's not in power anymore and they're in such poverty, she still won't be selected, but somehow she is. And she goes to the palace, and this was such a great tale of politics and women in competition, vying for power. Everyone's trying to be that special one for him. However, obviously not everyone can. And most of them are basically slaves. May is a very intelligent girl, and her father valued education, and her favorite book was The Art of War, and she tries to apply those tactics and her intelligence to try and get ahead of the other women, which really makes her an outcast. Some particular quotes that I liked about from this book, it says, "If you know the enemy and know yourself, you need not fear the result of 100 battles. If you know yourself, but not the enemy, for every victory gained, you will also suffer defeat. If you know neither the enemy nor yourself, you will succumb in battle." I think that might be from The Art of War. Sometime in our lives, we all needed to find a path through the clouds of our destinies and walk down alone. So I will definitely be picking up the second book in this duology. May was a true character in history. I think she might have been one of the most famous concubines in China. I need to research more about that, but if you like a fast-paced read about historical China that is kind of about political intrigue, I don't want to say it's soap opera-ish, but it has that element of the women trying to best each other to be the emperor's one. I would pick that up. And that's where I'm going to wrap up my 4 East Asian literature that I've read recently. Please let me know if you've read any of these or the duologies for these, and if you have any other recommendations that I would love, because I certainly love